We are going to do our next Ask Us Anything session. So I'm going to call on stage. We have Irena, Jason, Morgan, Natalie, and Rachel. Can you please turn on your cameras? Hey, everyone. How are you doing?
Good.
Lovely to see you.
Doing great.
Great.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm just going to let you introduce yourselves one after the other, and I take 2 to 3 minutes to say what you're doing. Have you been getting into this industry? If you have job that you want to talk about, feel free to talk about that and put the links in the chat. And I'm just going to start. So is it Irena or Irena? How do you pronounce it?
It's Irena. Thank you.
Irena. All right, so go for it.
All right, awesome. Hello, I'm Irena Pereira. I am UX director with UXIF. UX is fine, actually, sorry, the abbreviation is how we refer to it internally, but we are a UX consulting organization led by Jason Schklar, who's here with us today too. And we serve the needs of evangelizing UX and great UX practices around the games industry. Jason, do you want to just double down on that?
Irena also is a 20+ year veteran of game UX. She was doing game UX before game UX was a thing. And so thank you for leading various teams over the years and doing the heavy lifting of just one thing that we've learned working with Irena is just how awesome she is at lifting up and mentoring and training junior folks, as well as being an awesome leader and expert in the field working with clients. So Irena, you undersold yourself. You're awesome. For me, I've been in the industry for 20 years before games user research was actually a thing, and I was doing games user research. And so I've been around for a while. I've shipped games as a producer, been a systems designer type, UX director type, and lately entrepreneur in the field of user experience and working with teams.
Sweet, thank you. I have Natalie on my list next.
Howdy, y'all. My name is Natalie. I am a UX researcher at EA. I can provide perspective as someone who has recently joined the field of game UX. I was a UX researcher at a tech company, a streaming service before I came to EA, and I'm approaching my 2-year anniversary. So really excited to be here, honored to be on this summit with so many accomplished folks and inspiring folks. So look forward to the questions, and hopefully we can all have fun in the next hour.
Yeah. Morgan, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you? Long time no see. So Morgan Kennedy, I'm ex-Ubisoft Montreal games user researcher alongside Celia. Which is actually where we met first. And I currently am senior client researcher for Unity Technologies, but most recently I was studio head for Player Research Montreal, which is similar to the UX consultancy that Irena and Jason run. A games user research focused consultancy that has exclusively clients within the games industry. I should say they usually have clients in the game industry. I'm no longer with them, but yeah, the background is originally actually in sociology and interaction design. I haven't been doing this as long as some of the other folks on the call, but I'm old enough so that when I went to school, you couldn't actually study many of the things that we now sort of take for granted, like games. I started studying film actually when I started my bachelor's degree, because there was no game studies of any kind. So anyway, I hope that I can somehow be helpful to the folks on the call who are looking to get into the industry.
Sweet, thank you so much, Morgan. And Rachel, or as I like to say, Dr. Kowert.
Celia, you're so funny. Hi, I'm Dr. Rachel Kowert. I am the research director for Take This, which is a mental health nonprofit that bridges the gap between gaming communities and gaming industry. We consult and work and do research for both industry members, as well as things to support the gaming community. So mental health resources specifically that are tailored to the culturally competent nature of what games are and what they're not. Like Morgan, game studies did not exist when I was going to school, kind of had to pave my own way. And now I head up the research, I take this, and I also spend my time bridging the gap between moral panic and scientific, what's the word, understandings, conveying scientific information in a way in which other people can understand through YouTube, through my YouTube channel, which is Zeitgeist. So I'm here to have kind of like the bridging between academia, community, industry. I hope that my perspective can be helpful.
Absolutely, Rachel. And yeah, you're debunking all the moral panics one at a time. There's quite a bunch of these.
Trying.
It's exhausting. There's so many. But yeah, it's also important to explain because a lot of people are worried. So that's great work, and it's really important to get more science and knowledge out there. So thank you for your work. So thank you everyone for being here. I'm gonna stop the recording right now, and then I'm gonna call the first person. So Ava Liao, if you can raise your hand, and as soon as I stop the recording, I'll put you up on stage. There you go. So thank you so much for the students and aspiring game UX professionals to have shown all the materials, and I hope that you got some great answers from our lovely panelists who gave us their time to provide some guidance. There are a few questions in the Q&A that I think would be interesting to cover, even though we talked about it a little bit during the sessions, but because it was not recorded, it's nice to try to wrap it up before we end the session. So we have Sarah says, how complex is it to pass from senior UX designer in the tech industry to the gaming industry? I started 7 years ago and evolved in a lot between digital and physical UX on tech products, but my passion remains in entertainment industry. I'd like to make a move into gaming at some point. Any suggestion on how to present myself while maintaining my seniority? Yeah, Jason, you had some thoughts earlier about this.
Yeah, I really think that it's going to be an adjustment of expectations, because working in games for several years just means you've shipped games, and seeing the end-to-end shipping of games and working with the teams, understanding the languages that they speak. And I'm not saying it's totally different. Like the fact that you're becoming expert in your own domain in terms of communicating with your production teams and shipping those products, obviously that means you have some skills in the area. Games is very different in many ways. And at a senior level, it's harder to spend time teaching people about that stuff. You expect your juniors to get there, but so hiring someone in as a senior on a game in development, it's not. I mean, you would have to be like, it would have to be clear, like you were making board game, like I talked about with ours, like you're making board games on your own. You're going to game jams and things like that. Like it would be hard to make the case, is all I'm saying. It's not impossible, because it can happen. Even at my company, it happened. But like, yeah, it's going to be hard.
Yeah, I think you can kind of expect maybe a step back from senior to mid-level when moving into games, just because the framework is so different. And quite honestly, the games industry doesn't operate at the same maturity level as outside of games, to be frank. So there's a bit more of a learning curve and an adaptation that you need to make to the working processes that are in place, but while also having the seniority to be able to help up level the game teams that you're working with. So adjusting your expectations, doing things like, again, taking those senior level skills, that editing capability, those deliverable making skills, and applying them to games in a passion sense that is hugely powerful to demonstrate how you can apply your skills in the space. But there's still going to be a little bit of a disconnect that is really hard to overcome just with a direct transition.
Yes, Morgan?
Building on what Irena said, I really think, and this is my highly opinionated answer, there's no sense in doing what you just described unless your intent is to change the games industry's UX practices and make them better, because we are definitely behind in some ways. And so you should expect to be using processes that had been adopted, tried, and abandoned in regular UX design. still you should expect to still find those being used in the games industry. And so you would be ahead of the curve in some ways. Figuring out how to message that, of course, and how to work that into like your actual role, I think is going to be the challenge, in addition to the ones that were mentioned already.
Okay, we're running a bit late, but I feel that if Jen is okay, we're going to take a couple more minutes if everyone is fine to just answer some questions. So there is one about the portfolio. Most important for on the front page of our portfolio, so it's instantly clear what each project is about, what is it made, in the exact topics. I can't read where our responsibility extra, but I think a front page with a more general front page that links to projects, it just looks better and feels like clunky. So the question is, where is the line between info dump and sleek portfolio, and what is generally considered better?
I want to spend the least amount of time gathering the information I need. I want to be able to expand it if I'm interested, but you're going to have to get my attention real quick. So sleek is better.
I completely agree. It's not only from the recruiter's standpoint, give them the information that they need as quickly as possible. When the resumes get passed on to us to also field, we have the same things in mind. Like, yes, we want to dig into all the detail as much as we want to, because this is stuff that we care about, but we also are busy. So you could almost, and again, like looking back on the examples we just saw today, there's the super detailed version, and then there's the trimmed down version, editorial version. So you don't have to abandon all this wealth of information that you provided on your portfolios. In fact, keep that and make it accessible in another possible sub page that someone can opt into, but don't make that your default. Always assume that you need to UX the heck out of everything that you're doing for everyone who's trying to find it. Just default to that is my advice.
There's another question for you, Natalie, since you're here. How, as your transition from graduate school to industry, then to games industry, what advice would you give to these following a similar path?
Oh, yeah. So my transition from school to industry was really explaining my thought process and how I go about answering questions. So for those who are not checking out my LinkedIn, because I'm sure that's how you found out, I didn't pursue a UX degree. I was actually in a global media communications master's program. And I made the case to my recruiters for my first job. I can do this because I have done theses projects where I have had to, do, large scale surveys with analysis and then producing, XY recommendations, or I have interviewed people and have come up with themes that like uncovers this knowledge about, XYZ. So explaining that thought process was what got me my first UX job. And then getting into the game industry was more or less the same thing, but in arguing I have the skill set to be able to apply this to games. And for those, I think there was some chatter in the chat about, do you have to have a portfolio as a UX researcher? I did make one without providing any of the sensitive information that I had from my previous work that was not available in the public. But I was still able to say, let's imagine that this data was what I had, and then this is what I did with it to do this, and then emphasizing what changed or what was acted upon based off of that data was compelling for my interview into the game industry, because they were like, oh, okay, like she knows how to give a presentation to people, make change. Okay, like she can do the job. So I would definitely look at that personal branding story of like, do you have the skills to do the job? That's really all that people want to know when they're thinking about, giving you that chance to jump into the industry.
That's great advice. Thank you. We're gonna have to wrap up. I know there's a few questions still. So if the panelists want to take a look at those questions and answer via chat, that would be lovely. Do each of you want to give like just like a one sentence advice for our audience? How to get in the game industry?
Game jams.
Yeah,
The
just
way that-
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that the way that I got into the games industry was just by being scrappy. Get in there any way you can. I was actually a web developer to start, and I was an engineer, and I found a job working at 989 Studios, Verint, working on the website for EverQuest. And that was like my first legitimate games job. And then that took me all the way through to working on World of Warcraft and at 38 Studios on, massive MMOs. So get in any way you can, because it's a great ride and it's a great place to be because it really pushes our creativity and helps us grow. So good luck to everybody.
EverQuest. That's like back in the day. Lovely. Yes, it's game jams. Meet people, talk to people, get it. That's how you get in any way you can. You meet people and you talk to people, and you make those friendships and those connections.
And I'll just say, understand why you want to do it, because that can be your touchstone even once you're in the industry, because it's not going to stop being challenging once you get the job. It'll probably actually be more challenging. So, having something that you can go back to as kind of a touchstone at the different points of your career, I think is going to help as well.
Follow up on my point. Don't let you not being in the game industry currently stop you from working on games. I think that's the biggest perception that everyone needs to break about themselves. You can be working on a game right now. There are so many ways that you can get involved in the community without having to have that opportunity handed to you right now.
Awesome. So, and I know Jason I had to go. So thank you, Jason, even though you can't see us anymore. So that was great advice to everyone. Thank you so much again for your time. I'm going to reiterate on my website, celiahooden.com/resources. You'll find a bunch of resources, including a bunch of communities. So we talked about the We Can Fix It in the UI. I think the link is there. We have the GUXS community. So at least find us. We're pretty nice overall. And so join us and be part of the discussion and yeah, make games, work on side projects if you can. This is how you're going to be able to get in. So I'm going to thank you everyone again. Rachel, where can we see Sidecast? Can you give us the link?
You're so sweet. You can find me on YouTube. Once a week, I post a new video about the science of games. So if you're interested in learning more about how games impact us psychologically, mostly, and sometimes I throw in a Henry Cavill reference about every other video just to keep it spicy. I can put the link in the chat.
Yes, please. And yeah, well, that's about it for this session. And then I'm gonna call up Jen on stage.